Do you want to master your own songs but you don't have those super cool expensive third-party plugins? Don't worry, I'm gonna show you how to master your own songs using only FL Studio stock plugins. Yo, what is up guys, welcome to a new video. My name is Wildcrow and as I said, today I'm gonna show you how to master your songs using only FL Studio plugins, like the parametric EQ, the Free2 compressor, the Free2 limiter, the Maximus and all those things. And also I'm gonna give away a free mastering done by me to a lucky winner, and to participate is so simple. During this video there are gonna appear some letters like this one. This is gonna be the first one. What you need to do is just find all of them. This is gonna be a code and you need to send this code to this mail, wildcrowextra@gmail.com, with the subject mastering giveaway, something like this. The first person that finds the right code is gonna have a free mastering done by me. And also, before going to the video, I want to remind you that I've released a new Serum soundbank with 80 awesome presets that includes basses, leads, chords, pianos, guitars and a lot of other things. And if you want it, just down below in the description you have the link, you can go and get it, and if you get it, thank you so much for the support. So here we have my song Like I Remember without the mastering, and this with the mastering, and what we want to do basically is go from this to this. And one thing that you need to know is that here the key is the mixing, not the mastering. If you have any problem in the mixing, the mastering is not gonna solve it. Mastering can help you to make the song sound a bit brighter, maybe a bit more bass or less bass, or maybe less muddy, but it's not gonna make a specific sound better, or it's not gonna make one sound louder or quieter. So if you have any of those problems, just come back to the mixing and solve it there. So the first thing I like to do when I'm mastering is put a Free2 balance, and actually I use this one when I master with third-party plugins, and then create an automation of the entire song. I'm gonna use the automation to balance some of the parts of the song, because sometimes maybe the breakdown is way too quiet, or maybe is way too loud, or there's a part that is too loud or not loud enough. So it's way with this plugin I can balance it. But before the Free2 balance, I like to use the stereo imager by Waves. As well can I use third-party plugins. I'm just gonna use the stereo enhancer by FL Studio. And what I'm gonna do is here in the build-up is create an automation of this. And with this plugin, what I'm gonna do is just make the song a bit more mono before the drop, and then when the drop comes, just make it wide again. So this way it's gonna feel like the drop is wider, and this gives a lot more energy to the song. So if we make this go up, it's gonna be mono. As you can see, of course, not that much, just a little bit. Yeah, with this is enough. And also what I'm gonna do is reduce a bit the volume before the drop, but of course not like this, okay, not 11 dBs, just maybe 1 or 2 dBs. To do the same thing, we reduce a bit the volume, so this way when the drop comes, the drop is louder and gives more energy. So maybe let's try with 1 dB and a half, and then here we want to bring it back. At this part is a bit quieter. What I'm gonna do is here increase it a little bit, maybe something like this. And the last thing I would do in the build-up is to reduce the sub-bass if I think there's too much. In this song it's not needed because I already did it in the mixdown. But basically what you want to do is just use the parametric EQ and do here a low cut. And then automate the frequency, so you make it go up, 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 up. And then when the drop comes, boom, you bring it back. The problem, as you can see, is that here the minimum is already reducing. So my advice is just reduce the volume of this so it's not working. Create an automation of this in the build-up and just enable this in the build-up. But then when the drop comes, you bring it back. So this way it's only gonna be reducing in that part that is where you want to reduce. So now our song is mastered, we just need to export it. So now that we have done this to the build-up, I'm gonna start working to the actual mastering, and the first thing I'm gonna do is just use an EQ and try to find some resonance. For the EQ, of course, I'm gonna use this one, the parametric EQ2, and what I'm gonna do is just take a bell, make it up, make it like a notch, and I start from here going down, trying to find a resonance. This is not really a resonance, but this is a frequency that I don't really like, so I'm gonna reduce it. And how much? Of course not this. Just maybe 1 dB, 2, because this is not that loud. And now, let's continue. This sounds bad, let's reduce it, and as it's a bit louder, I'm gonna reduce a bit more, like 2 dBs, maybe max, I would do it on 6 dBs, but be careful with it. Usually I don't go on 200, 250 lower to find resonance, because it's gonna be so easy to find the resonance in these frequencies. These frequencies are pretty loud and pretty easy to distort or to create resonance if you just boost it. So probably what you're gonna do is you're gonna find a lot of resonance and you're gonna start reducing, and basically you're gonna kill the sub bass. So usually I don't try to find resonance there to avoid this problem. Now what I would do is use a match EQ, but FL Studio doesn't have a match EQ, at least for now. So what I'm gonna do is just use my ears with the reference song, that actually the reference song here is the mastered version, because of course if I put other songs maybe get copyright and I don't want copyright in this video. So let's listen first to the reference song or the master version. Alright, first it has a bit less lows. And how much you want to reduce? Of course not this, okay? In the mastering, the thing, it needs to be subtle, so maybe half dB, maybe 1 dB. I think it also has a bit less mids. I'm gonna reduce a bit here also, like half dB, something like this. And of course has a lot more mid-highs and highs. And what I do on the mid-highs is usually just boost it. I try to find in what frequency I like the color it gives, and then of course I don't boost that much. More or less I like this one. I'm gonna boost like maybe half dB, 1 dB. Again, it has more highs. Maybe a bit less mids, but I don't want to reduce that much, so something like this. Now usually I would use the Ozone 9 with Master Assistant that will give a bit more EQ that I don't need, a dynamic EQ that I cannot have, and the Ozone Imager to make it wider per frequency bands. FL Studio doesn't have an imager that spreads in different bands, or that's what you think. So what I'm gonna use is Patcher. Maybe you think Patcher is not that good, but if you click here on presets, boom, look how many presets you have. And here, 3 band stereo separation. So click here and you have a stereo separation of the bands. And if you boost this, the mids are wider, the highs are wider, and this is the sub bass. So you have a frequency band stereo imager. So let's check the reference song and see how wide it is. Yeah, it's a bit wider, so I'm gonna boost a bit. This starts to sound weird, so of course not that much, just a little bit like this. I think something like this is enough. What comes next? The compressor, or that's what most of the people would tell you. If you know me, you know that I don't really like to compress, because sometimes if you don't know well how to compress, you're not gonna know how much attack or release you should put, and then the song is gonna sound weird. Sometimes you can create a like bouncing effect where you compress, and you don't want this. So what I do next is I just use 2 limiters. You know, I use the FabFilter Pro L2 and the Invisible limiter. The problem is that FL Studio doesn't have that good limiters, at least in my opinion. So I'm gonna compress a bit, so this way the limiters of FL Studio don't have to work that much. On the Free to Compressor, again, you can click here on the presets and you have a lot of presets, and I'm gonna try the master ones, and to check what actually they are doing, I'm just gonna reduce a lot the threshold. You see, it creates like a weird sound, like a not transparent sound. It's creating like a bit of bouncing effect, of course, because I'm compressing too much. But we can find some presets that maybe don't create this effect compressing as much as this one. So let's try the master 2. Again, it's creating a weird effect. Let's try this master V. As you can see, I'm reducing a lot the threshold as before, but it's not creating this bouncing effect. It's more transparent, so I'm gonna use this one. But maybe not that much ratio. What I want is just a little bit of compression. And to see better that I'm reducing or not, I'm gonna use the dB meter of FL Studio. So now we're around here. I don't want to go that low. Just like this, a couple of dBs. And now comes the limiter. I'm gonna try first the Fruity limiter, but I don't really recommend you to use this one, and let me show you why. Alright, so here's the Fruity limiter. The only thing you need to do is just this, and this is what you're gonna be limiting. But if I do this, As you can see, the volume is like going up and down, and of course you don't want this. The normal thing on a limiter would be to, in this case, be distorting. And yes, of course you can say, oh, but touch the tag, touch the release and all these things, and maybe it doesn't create this effect. Yes, maybe, but it's not gonna really give, in my opinion at least, a good commercial level on the loudness. So what I'm gonna do is instead use the Maximus. But wait, I almost forgot. Before the Maximus you need another thing, you need another EQ. And basically with this EQ what we're gonna do is cut the low, something like this, and cut the high, something like this. Of course not that much. But you want to cut the very lows and the very highs, because those frequencies you don't need them. You're not gonna hear them, and most of the sound systems are not gonna play them. So if you cut those lows and those highs, you're gonna have more headroom, or, I mean more space on your song before it hits the limiter. So this way it's gonna distort less and you're gonna be able to compress or limit more. Here my advice is to get a pretty steep one, you know, and how much? Usually on 30 Hz is enough, and on the highs I usually go on 19,000 Hz. The maximum is similar to the Freety limiter, but is divided in bands. My advice is to don't touch these bands differently, because if you really work on the mixdown on this and you created the right balance for these frequency bands, why do you want to touch them now? You're gonna create a different balance that is not actually what you want. And as this limiter also has attack and release, and sometimes we don't really know what attack and release we should use, my advice is just go here, click on presets, and just use one of these mastering ones. I'm gonna use the Clear Master RMS, and this one, as you can see, touches differently each band, and as I said, I don't want it, so just bring this back. And we're just gonna use the master. You need to put this on, and if you just go here and you on the pre-gain you boost it, it's happening the same as with the limiter, you know, it's like creating like a bouncing effect, like going up and down the volume. What I'm gonna do instead is use the post, but if you boost this like this, as you can see here, it's not limiting at 0. To make sure that the limit is on 0, you have to go here and on the threshold reduce it, okay? As you can see, it says how much percent it has, you know, 22. My advice is just go on 1%, and now the limit is on 0. And of course, now it's distorting a lot. So let's come back to the point that it's not distorting. And as sometimes your ears can be a bit tricky if you make things louder, what I'm gonna do is reduce here the same as we're boosting, and now here I'm just gonna disable, check how it sounds, and then enable again, and see actually if I'm boosting too much, if I'm a little distorting, and all these things. Actually, it's not distorting. I think I can boost a bit more. And now that it's not distorting, what we're gonna do is check the loops of the song. Basically, is how loud it sounds. And if it sounds way too loud, maybe we can reduce it a little bit, or maybe if it sounds too quiet, we need to boost it a bit more. And to check the loops, I'm gonna use the Julian Loudness Meter 2, that, don't worry, as you can see here, it says is free. And the first thing you need to do is check the loops of the reference song, in this case the master one. As you can see, it's around -5.3, -5.5, so we want more or less that kind of volume. Of course, you can boost it more to -5, -4, but if this is your reference song and sounds like this, then don't worry, you can have it like this. So let's check the new mastering. So it is even a bit louder, and what I'm gonna do is reduce a little bit, because sometimes maybe you don't hear the little bit of distortion that the song has, or maybe there's a part of the song that you didn't listen yet that is distorting. So this way you give a bit more space to your song and you make sure that it's not distorting or sounding over compressed or something. So just reduce a bit and try to get the same loudness. A bit more. Like this. So now our song is mastered, we just need to export it. So for the settings of the render, just go here, choose wave for MP3 if you want it, you know, MP3 always 320, and on the wave bit depth depends, some labels want it on 16-bit or some in 24, then here we're sampling on the max, HQ and all these things, and just start. Alright, so this our new mastered, and actually looks like more limited than our first mastering, but of course the waveform is not everything, we need to listen to it. So let's compare the previous version that was mastered with expensive third-party plugins and this new version mastered only using FL Studio plugins. actually sounds so good and so close. Maybe the first version is better on the width because I have more control on the width with the bands of Ozone Imager than, for example, with the bands that the patcher gives us. And also I feel like the color of it is a bit better, it's a bit warmer and a bit more with a bit more detail, but actually sounds so good and is a well mastered song. And do you remember that in this video there were some hidden letters that can make you win a free mastering done by me? If you forgot it, just come back and watch the video again and look where I put the letters. So nothing else, guys. I hope you enjoyed and you learned something. If you have any questions about the mastering, just leave it down below in the comments. Now what you can do is maybe watch this video about mastering with external plugins, you know, with third-party plugins. And also what you can do is just subscribe to my channel, so this way you don't miss any tutorial, any video or anything I do, or any giveaway, for example. Thank you so much, guys, for watching, and see you in the next video.